don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe to get it off my chest. Maybe to warn people. Maybe just so it's out there somewhere. In case something happens to me. But I need to say it. I need to put it into words before it eats me alive. It started a few months ago when I was in a really dark place. I wasn't suicidal, not exactly, but I didn't care what happened to me. You know that feeling? Where every day is just the same and you're just existing? No goals, no dreams, just scrolling through Reddit and Twitter, watching random YouTube videos, jerking off to porn out of habit more than desire, eating whatever DoorDash dropped off, sleeping when I felt like it. I was deep into the weird parts of the internet too. Not conspiracy shit, not incel crap, just odd stuff. Dark web forums, bizarre Reddit threads about experiments and urban legends, people talking about the unexplainable. I didn't believe in ghosts or aliens or any of that, but I liked the idea of things being out there, things that don't make sense. It made the world feel less boring. That's how I found the ad. It was buried in a thread about extreme hypnosis experiments. Someone had posted a screenshot of a message they got, offering money in exchange for being hypnotized. People in the comments were split. Some said it was bullshit. Some said it was dangerous. A few people were interested. I was one of them. I found an email in one of the replies. No website, no official-looking branding. Just an email, projectorebus@protonmail.com. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe some scam about subliminal messages making you a millionaire. Or some bullshit self-improvement hypnosis. But I emailed them. Just something casual like, hey, I saw your offer. What's the deal? They got back to me in less than an hour.
We're conducting an experiment on post-hypnotic suggestion and extreme subconscious influence. The procedure is entirely safe. Participants will receive $10,000 per session. If interested, reply with your age, location, and availability. $10,000. For what? Lying down and letting someone talk to me? I figured it was fake, but I played along. Sent them my info, told them I was free whenever. They replied almost immediately. Your profile is acceptable. If you're comfortable proceeding, we will arrange an in-person session. We prefer Airbnb locations for privacy. You may select one near you, and we will book it under an alias. The session will last approximately 2 hours. Payment will be made in cash immediately after. Do not consume any stimulants, caffeine, nicotine, etc. 12 hours prior. If you agree, reply with your nearest major city and we will handle the arrangements. It was so official, precise. No sketchy requests for personal info. No demand for a deposit or crypto, just straight to business. I don't know why, but I said yes. Maybe because I didn't believe it. Maybe because I wanted something to happen in my life, anything. 2 days later, they sent me an address, a small, shitty Airbnb in a not-so-great part of town. I got an Uber there thinking I'd walk in and see some weird old dude with a pocket watch or some shit. I half expected to get robbed or drugged. I didn't expect him. The guy was normal, mid-30s, clean-shaven, wearing a grey hoodie and jeans. He looked like someone you'd see at Target, just another forgettable face. That was the first thing that freaked me out. No dramatic vibes, no creepy doctor aesthetic, just some guy. "Come in," he said. I hesitated. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, smiling. "If at any point you're uncomfortable, you can leave. No hard feelings." Something about the way he said it put me at ease. Or maybe I just wanted the money. I went inside. The Airbnb was almost empty. Just a couch, a single lamp, and a chair in the middle of the room. No TV, no decorations, just bare. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair. I sat. He pulled out a small notepad, flipped through it, then nodded to himself. "I'm going to guide you into a deep hypnotic state," he said. "Your body will relax, your mind will slow down, and you'll enter a state of hypersuggestibility. You won't lose control. You'll simply be more open. I swallowed. And then what? I'll test a few suggestions, he said. Nothing drastic, just small things. I nodded. And I get paid after? He smiled. Immediately. I don't remember the induction. 1 minute I was sitting there, the next I was somewhere else, not asleep, not awake, somewhere in between, floating. I could hear his voice, but it was distant, like it was coming from underwater. I don't remember what he said, just fragments, words slipping through my brain like water through fingers. Then suddenly I woke up, standing, hands covered in blood, not my blood. I turned, heart hammering, my stomach twisting itself into knots. There was a man on the floor, face down, unmoving, a knife in my hand. I dropped it, stumbled back. My breath came in ragged gasps, my vision tunneling. The guy, the hypnotist, was still sitting in the chair, watching me with an unreadable expression. What the fuck? My voice barely worked. He stood up, walked over to the body, crouched down, felt for a pulse. Dead, he said, like he was checking the weather. I killed someone. I started to shake. What the fuck did you do to me? He looked up, still calm, too calm. I suggested a scenario. You followed through. My stomach churned. I wanted to puke, but I couldn't. I wouldn't. My head was spinning. You did! He pulled out a phone. You will remember none of this until I send you a message. When I do, it will all come back. Every second I backed away. No. Sit, he said. And before I could stop myself, I did. Like a puppet with cut strings, I collapsed into the chair. My mind screamed, but my body didn't listen. He walked over, crouched in front of me. You will leave. You will forget this happened. You will go home. When I need you, I will call, and you will answer. I tried to fight it. Every cell in my body fought to move, to scream, to do something. I couldn't. The last thing I remember is him pressing a wad of cash into my hand, guiding me to the door like I was sleepwalking. Then I woke up, in my bed. No memory of how I got there. No memory of anything. Until today, I got a text. Remember. And now I do. All of it. I dropped my phone. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely breathe, let alone think. Remember. 2 words. That was all it took. The memories hit me like a fucking train. The Airbnb, the blood, the body, the hypnotist's voice, my own hands holding the knife, my heartbeat pounding in my ears, the feeling of warm blood dripping down my fingers. I fucking killed someone, and until now, I didn't even know it happened. I dry heaved, my stomach twisting itself into knots. Nothing came up. I hadn't eaten all day. I stumbled to the sink, splashing cold water on my face, but it didn't help. The panic was a living thing, crawling up my throat, digging into my skin. I checked my phone again. No name, no number, just the message. I tried to respond, but it wouldn't send. Just, message failed to deliver. I needed to think. I tried to remember details about the guy I killed, but my brain wouldn't cooperate. Just flashes, blood, a face, but blurred, like my memory was still fighting against itself. I needed answers. I pulled up Google and searched for murder Airbnb, my city. Nothing. I checked Reddit, Twitter, even those shitty local news Facebook groups where boomers complain about gas prices. Still nothing. How? How does a guy die in an Airbnb and it doesn't make the news? I was spiraling. I kept refreshing, kept searching. I dug through Airbnb reviews trying to find the listing, but it was gone, like it never existed. I was about to give up when my phone buzzed again. Another message. Your next session is scheduled for tomorrow. Same rules apply. Number fucking. Where I almost threw my phone. My brain screamed at me to ignore it. Block the number. Run. But a sick, twisted part of me needed to know what the fuck was going on. I sat on my couch,
staring at the message. What if I don't show up? What if I just pretend I never saw it? Would they come for me? I thought about the guy's voice. Calm, patient. The way he made me sit, even when I didn't want to. Would I even have a choice? I barely slept that night. I kept checking the locks on my door, jumping at every sound. I didn't know what to expect. Would someone show up at my place? Would I wake up in another Airbnb covered in blood? By morning, I had made my decision. I wasn't going. I didn't care about the money. I didn't care about answers. I just wanted out. But at 3:15 p.m., something happened that changed everything. I was scrolling through my phone, trying to distract myself, when I heard a car engine outside my window. Not unusual. I live in an apartment complex, so there's always noise. But something about this car made me look. A black sedan, tinted windows, parked across the street, not moving. I watched it for a few minutes. No one got out. No one got in. It just sat there. I felt it in my gut. They were watching me. I pulled my curtains shut, my heartbeat hammering in my chest. My phone buzzed. Opened the door. My stomach dropped. I wasn't playing this fucking game anymore. I grabbed a kitchen knife and backed away from the door like a fucking horror movie character. I didn't care how crazy I looked. Then silence. No knocking, no footsteps, just stillness. I held my breath. I didn't move. Then my phone buzzed again. A photo of me, standing in my living room holding the knife. I dropped it immediately. My body went cold, like I had just been dunked into an ice bath. Someone was inside. I spun around, my eyes darting across the room. Every door, every shadow. I was alone, or so I thought. The closet door in my bedroom was open, just a crack. I swear to God I closed it earlier. I took a slow, shaking step forward, then another. The air felt thick, wrong, like something was standing there, just waiting for me to notice. I reached out, gripping the closet door handle. I yanked it open. Empty, nothing, no one. But then I saw it. A single earpiece. One of those tiny, flesh-coloured earbuds people use to listen to music without anyone noticing. I picked it up with trembling fingers, holding it up to the light. Then my phone buzzed one last time. See you soon. I left my apartment that night. I didn't take anything, just my phone, my keys, and the clothes on my back. I went to a Motel 6 on the other side of the city and paid in cash. I tried to think. Who the fuck were these people? How did they get into my place? How long had they been watching me? I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes, blood, that faceless man on the floor, the hypnotist's cold, expressionless eyes. At some point, I must have dozed off because I woke up to a loud noise outside my motel window. Sirens, cops. I sat up, my heart pounding, and peeked outside. 2 police cars parked right in front of the motel. Officers talking to the guy at the front desk. For a second, I thought they were here for me. I almost ran. Then I saw the stretcher, a body bag. The cops weren't here for me. Someone had been murdered. I grabbed my phone and started searching. It didn't take long to find it. A man had been found stabbed to death in his motel room. The description matched the room right next to mine. The news said it was a robbery, that the guy probably fought back, but I knew better. This was a message.
They knew where I was. They were letting me know I couldn't run. And the worst part? I couldn't remember a single fucking thing about last night. I left the motel before the sun came up. Didn't shower, didn't check out. Just walked straight out the door and didn't look back. I had to keep moving. Staying in one place wasn't an option anymore. I knew that now. They were watching me, controlling me. And worst of all, I didn't know when they were doing it. I took an Uber to another part of the city, some random shitty diner off the highway. One of those places where the waitress looks like she's been working there since the 80s and the coffee tastes like burnt dirt. I needed time to think. I ordered black coffee and toast, even though I wasn't hungry. The place was mostly empty except for a couple truckers and an old guy reading a newspaper. I pulled out my phone, checked the news again. The motel murder was still being reported as a robbery gone wrong. No suspects, no witnesses. But I knew. I knew because I checked my hands. And there was blood under my fingernails. I scrubbed them in the bathroom for 10 minutes straight, but I still felt it there. I could still smell it. I kept hearing the hypnotist's voice in my head. You will remember none of this until I send you a message. Was that what happened? Did he send the message while I was asleep? Did I wake up, walk into the next room, and kill a man without even knowing? The thought made me want to rip my own fucking skin off. I needed to go to the cops. I needed to tell someone, but what the fuck was I supposed to say? Hey, officer, I think I'm being hypnotized into committing murders. No, I don't know who's doing it. No, I don't know how they're doing it. No, I don't even remember doing it. They'd either laugh me out of the station or throw me in a padded room. I was trapped. The waitress came over to refill my coffee. I almost flinched when she spoke. My nerves were shot. You okay, hun? She asked. I opened my mouth, then closed it. What the fuck was I supposed to say? Yeah, I lied. Just tired. She gave me a look like she didn't believe me, but she didn't push, just topped off my coffee and walked away. I sat there, staring at my phone, trying to figure out my next move. That's when I saw him, through the diner window across the street, a man standing on the sidewalk, just watching me.
He wasn't doing anything. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't waiting for a bus, just standing perfectly still, staring directly at me. I tried to act normal, took a sip of my coffee, peeked at my phone, but my hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I looked again. He was closer. I fucking froze. He hadn't moved, at least not that I saw. But somehow, he was at the edge of the parking lot now, still staring. I grabbed my backpack and booked it, threw a $20 bill on the table, and ran out the side door without looking back. I didn't stop until I was 3 blocks away. I ducked into a Walgreens, pretending to browse the snack aisle while I caught my breath. My hands were slick with sweat. My heart was hammering. I needed to get the fuck out of town. Now I pulled out my phone to check bus tickets. And that's when I saw the new message. Do not run. I almost dropped my phone. I looked around, wild-eyed. Were they here? Was the man from outside watching me right now? Another message came in. Bus station, 10 minutes, come quietly. I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. I turned and sprinted out of the Walgreens, not toward the bus station, the opposite way. I didn't care anymore. I wasn't playing their game. I didn't care if they killed me. I wasn't going to let them use me like a fucking puppet. I ran into traffic, almost getting hit by a Toyota. People were yelling, honking, but I didn't stop. I cut through an alley, vaulted a fence into a parking lot, kept running until my legs screamed for me to stop. When I finally did, I was in a different neighborhood, some residential area, quiet, empty. I collapsed onto the curb, gasping for air. My lungs felt like they were on fire. And then I heard it, a car slowing down behind me. I didn't look, I couldn't. The door opened, footsteps, a voice. Get in! I turned my head, the hypnotist, standing right fucking there, same grey hoodie, same calm expression, like I hadn't just spent the last hour running for my goddamn life. I shook my head, scrambling backward. No, no, fuck you! He took a step forward. I am not asking. I tried to stand, but my legs weren't working right. Everything was spinning. That's when I felt it, a sharp sting in my neck. I barely had time to process it before my body locked up. I turned my head, my vision going fuzzy. A second man, the one from outside the diner. He had a syringe in his hand. Had they fucking drugged me?
The last thing I saw was the hypnotist crouching down in front of me, his cold, empty eyes staring into mine. Then everything went black. I woke up in a basement. Concrete walls, dim yellow light, no windows. I was strapped to a chair, metal cuffs around my wrists and ankles. My mouth was dry, my head was pounding, my body felt like it had been run over by a truck. Then I heard his voice. "Good, you're awake." I looked up. The hypnotist was sitting across from me, calm, relaxed, like this was just another day at the office. I swallowed. "What do you want?" He tilted his head. "You misunderstand. This isn't about what I want." I stared at him, my heart hammering against my ribs. "This is about what you want." I shook my head. "I don't want any of this." He smiled. "No?" Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a phone, and hit play. A video, the motel room, the murder, Mr. stabbing the man over and over again, grinning, laughing. I felt like I was going to be sick. "This is who you are now," the hypnotist said, his voice soft. Too soft. "You belong to us. You can fight it all you want, but the truth is," he leaned in, "you love it. And the worst part, for just a second, just 1 second, I wasn't sure if he was wrong. I don't know how long I was in that basement. Could have been hours, could have been days. Time stopped making sense. They never let me sleep for long. Whenever I started drifting off, a loud buzzer would blare through the room, jolting me awake. Food came in irregular intervals, sometimes a dry protein bar, sometimes a plate of steaming steak and mashed potatoes. There was no pattern, no logic, just control. I wasn't alone down there. There were others. I didn't see them, but I heard them. Muffled screams, the occasional sobbing, heavy footsteps pacing the floor above me. And then there was him, the hypnotist. He would come in at random times, always calm, always watching. He never raised his voice, never got angry. That made it worse. He was patient. He knew I'd break eventually. The first time I saw another prisoner was on the 3rd day. Or maybe the 4th, I don't know. They dragged me into another room, bigger, dimly lit. Concrete walls, metal drain in the floor. 2 men stood behind me, the ones who had grabbed me off the street. I still didn't know their names, didn't even know if they had names. In front of me was another chair, and in it, a woman, mid-20s, blonde, bruises on her arms, wrists zip-tied to the armrests. Her eyes were wide, pleading, my stomach twisted. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice hoarse. The hypnotist stepped forward. "She's part of your next session." I shook my head. "No." His expression didn't change. He pulled out his phone, tapped something on the screen, and then darkness. I wasn't unconscious. I was awake, aware, but my mind, my thoughts, weren't my own anymore. I felt it happen, like my body had been hijacked. I stood up, not because I wanted to, because I was told to. I reached into my pocket. My fingers wrapped around something cold. I pulled it out. A knife. The woman started screaming, begging, "Please, please, don't!" And I could do nothing, nothing. I could hear my own heartbeat, feel my own breath, but I had no control. My body wasn't mine anymore. I took a step forward, then another. The hypnotist's voice was soft, encouraging. "Good, just like before, just like before." The memories flooded back. The Airbnb, the motel, the man I killed in his sleep, and now this girl. I tried to fight it. My mind screamed. I tried to stop my hand from moving, tried to force my fingers to let go of the knife. I couldn't. I grinned, not because I wanted to, because I was told to. And then I plunged the knife into her stomach. I felt it all, the warmth of her blood, the way her body jerked against the restraints, the sound of her choking on her own screams, and I enjoyed it. At least, that's what they made me believe. When they brought me back to my room, I collapsed onto the floor. I wanted to rip my own skin off. I had been awake the whole time, watching, feeling, trapped inside my own body while they used me like a fucking machine. I tried to remind myself this wasn't me. But what if it was? What if deep down they had just unlocked something that was already there? I didn't know anymore. I curled up against the cold concrete and tried to sleep. That night, I dreamed of the girl's face. Only this time, she was smiling. And so was I. The next morning, they let me out of the basement. No warning, no explanation. Just unlocked my restraints and pulled me to my feet. "Come," one of the men said. I didn't ask where we were going. I just followed. They led me up a set of stairs. The air was different up here, warmer, less damp. I smelled food, bacon, eggs, coffee, a house, a fucking house. The hypnotist was waiting for me in the kitchen, sitting at a pristine white table. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Outside, a neatly trimmed lawn, a quiet street, like nothing was wrong. "Sit," he said. I sat. He poured me a cup of coffee. I didn't touch it. "Why am I here?" My voice was hollow. He smiled. "Because you're ready." I swallowed. "For what?" He leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand. "To let go." I shook my head. "I didn't." "You did." His voice was patient. Too patient. "I didn't force you to enjoy it. That was all you." My hands curled into fists. "Fuck you." He chuckled. "You don't believe me? Then why haven't you tried to run?" I froze. Because he was right. I could have lunged for the knife on the counter, could have made a break for the door. But I hadn't. Because some part of me didn't want to. He nodded, like he could hear my thoughts. "You're one of us now." I wanted to argue, wanted to scream at him, tell him I wasn't like them, but I didn't, because deep down I wasn't so sure anymore, and that terrified me more than anything. I don't know when I stopped fighting. Maybe it was when I woke up in that basement the first time. Maybe it was when I felt the knife sink into that girl's stomach. Maybe it was when I realized I didn't even want to run anymore, but at some point, I just gave in. They didn't keep me locked up after that. They didn't have to. A week passed, maybe more. I wasn't in the basement anymore. I had a room, a bed, clean clothes, a TV. They let me use my phone, but I had no signal, no internet, just blank screens like the whole world had stopped existing outside these walls. I wasn't alone. I started seeing the others, men, women, all different ages. Some looked just as lost as I felt. Others looked at peace, like they had fully accepted it. I still didn't understand what it was. Then one day, the hypnotist came to my room. "You're coming with me," he said. They drove me to a warehouse on the edge of town. It was late. Empty parking lot. No lights except for the ones spilling from inside. The hypnotist sat next to me in the back seat of the car. He didn't say anything the whole ride. Just stared ahead, calm as ever. When we got there, 2 men were waiting by the door. One of them was holding a bag. I didn't need to ask what was in it. I already knew. They led me inside. It wasn't an abandoned warehouse, not like the ones you see in movies where people get tortured and left for dead. It was functional, industrial, clean. And there was a man tied to a chair in the middle of the room. Older guy, maybe 50s. Blood dripping from his nose, soaking into his shirt. His hands were bound behind his back. He looked up when we walked in, blinking through swollen eyes. And then his face changed. Fear. But not at them. At me. "Please," he croaked. "You don't have to do this." I didn't move. The hypnotist placed a hand on my shoulder. "You remember how this works?" I did. I didn't want to, but I did. I felt it. The familiar, horrible pull in the back of my mind. The disconnect. Like my body was no longer mine. Like I was watching from behind my own eyes. One of the men opened the bag, pulled out a hammer, placed it in my hand. It felt natural, like I'd held it 1,000,000 times before. The man in the chair started sobbing. "Please." I heard the hypnotist's voice in my head. "Just like before, just like before." I lifted the hammer. and I didn't stop until he stopped screaming. When it was over, my hands were shaking, my heartbeat was steady. I felt nothing, not guilt, not horror, not fear, just nothing. I dropped the hammer, my fingers were numb, my arms felt heavy. I turned to the hypnotist. Who was he? He smiled. Does it matter? And I realized it didn't. That was my final test. After that, I wasn't a prisoner anymore. I wasn't controlled. I was trusted. They gave me a phone, a car, a new name. I moved into a house with the others. At first, I told myself I would pretend, that I would go along with it until I could find a way out. But as time passed, I started to realize I didn't want to leave. I didn't think about my old life anymore, my old apartment, my old habits, my old self. That person was dead. Now, there was only me, and I was free. They didn't just control me, they controlled everything. The police, the media, the people in power, every murder, every disappearance, every unsolved case you've ever heard of. That was us. I wasn't just a subject anymore. I was part of something bigger. And I liked it. Last night I got my first assignment. A man, mid-30s, lives alone, always online, obsessed with conspiracy theories, dark web rumors, secret organizations. He's been asking too many questions, and he's been telling his story on Reddit. I think you know who he is. I think you know what happens next. I'll see you soon.